From John dismantling the High Table and finally burying his demons, to him becoming the kingpin of the High Table itself, these are the best fan theories on how the John Wick franchise will end. I'll start with the obvious one. John's road to revenge will end in his own death. In Chapter 4, John and the Bowery King will make their play for the High Table. But the High Table, being as sneaky as it is, will have a few wild cards up its sleeve, and that'll force them to retreat. Maybe the Bowery King will die in the process, and John will be pushed back into hiding and will be all alone. Then it's on to Chapter 5, and this is where things get really ugly. John regroups and uses Winston's help to set up his trademark traps for everyone involved with the High Table. But this time, he won't back down. No matter what happens, he goes in guns blazing and annihilates every single person on the High Table and ends up dying in a blaze of glory, earning a warrior's death, just like Wolverine in Logan. And then, with the High Table gone, Winston takes over and establishes a more flexible and peaceful organization, and then instructs every mercenary across the world to bid farewell to Baba Yaga, the only man the devil himself was scared of. Damn, that'd bring tears to my eyes, because you don't casually see high-octane action thrillers with emotional endings for the main character, but I'm kinda hoping this is how it works out in the end. Although, if you don't want to say sayonara to John just yet, then how about a theory where he becomes the new High Table instead? This reverses the first one and puts him at the top when the dust finally settles. And is it really that hard imagining him aiming his way there? He and the Bowery King have more than enough experience and influence to take the High Table on. And this theory assumes that he not only gets to the top, but installs himself as the new elder of the organization and rebuilds a new empire brick by brick, laying the foundations for something better. Makes sense, right? Because he'll realize that people like him don't just leave that world behind, and that one way or another, he'll keep getting pulled back. Whether it's Winston or another Santino or another Yosef. So if that's the case, then why not do it from the top? It'll be easier that way. Plus, if anyone wants to leave the business and build a new life, then he'll let them leave with dignity, because he knows what it's like to be denied that opportunity. But then I think, wouldn't this be a more tragic way to live than to die fighting for what he believes in? If he makes himself the kingpin, then he'll become the very thing he swore to destroy. He'll be miserable. On the other hand, there's another way this could go. Instead of him ending up in the leadership position, he'll offer it to either Winston, who's proved himself an exceptional manager and leader, or to the Bowery King, who understands both the High Table and New York's dark underbelly. Personally, I think that makes more sense for the overall story. John's more of a warrior than a politician or puppet master. He doesn't care about making new policies or laws. He just wants a gun and someone to aim it at. And as long as the organization doesn't mess with him, everything's gonna go well. But this also fits with another cool theory, which is where he takes out the High Table and finally retires to a peaceful life. Well, peaceful is subjective here. Not sure he'll ever find peace after all the trauma he suffered, but still, getting rid of the root cause of all his problems doesn't sound like a bad deal, particularly if he makes a deal with either Winston or Bowery King. That new organization will no longer call him back into the field to solve a problem, or contact him or his loved ones in any way ever again. And that's as happy an ending as any, considering the franchise is so dark and gritty. Of course, not all theories are winners in my book. The happy ending might sound real good once you hear this next one. Remember the Elder from the desert in Chapter 3? A fan theory suggests that he's just a stooge for the real villain of the series, Winston. I don't like the sound of that, but tell me if it makes sense to you, okay? So, the theory turns the Elder into a sort of puppet from the main villain, because the High Table is more dangerous than we're led to believe. It's highly secretive, highly organized, and well-funded, much like Winston. He's in control of every situation we've seen so far, to the point where he relaxes in a bunker and sips on a drink while John and Sharon hold off the High Table's team. It's almost as if he knew he'd come out of this situation unscathed. According to the theory, Winston's the man behind the curtain, always in control, always in the background, and always with his own agenda. At the end of Chapter 3, he shot John in the chest knowing he had a Kevlar vest under his shirt, and knew that he'd probably survive the fall since there were garbage cans in the alley. That last one was probably guesswork, but still, he needed to appear as if he was just the manager of the Continental, and not the mastermind behind the organization. To the point where even the highest ranking members don't know who they're working for, when it's been Winston all along. And in the end, it'll be him and all his power versus John, his abilities, and his remaining allies. Again, I don't know how I feel about this one. It's a little far-fetched for me, but you tell me, does it make sense to you? If not, then it's okay, because I've saved my favorite theory for last. A Redditor named Kosas came up with the John Wick grief theory, and it's simple as it sounds. John's story is based on the 5 stages of grief, and every chapter deals with a different stage. The first one was denial. He spent the whole movie distracting himself from Helen's death, choosing to go after a mob boss's son for revenge against killing his dog and stealing his car. Sure, there's anger and fury inside him, but it mostly helps distract him from Helen's death. And next is Chapter 2, or anger. This one's pretty self-explanatory. John goes from denial straight into anger once Santino drops in and destroys his house. In fact, his anger makes him kill Santino on Continental grounds. This forces Winston to excommunicate him from the organization. And this led directly into Chapter 3, as well as Stage 3, bargaining. Now, whether it's wanting safe passage to Morocco, or an audience with the Elder, or a chance to reclaim his life, he's always bargaining with someone throughout the movie, and when this fails, he gets shot and thrown off a skyscraper, leading to Chapter 4 and the 4th stage, depression. Assuming this is how it goes, Chapter 4 will be the darkest entry in the franchise, and end with John and Bowery King losing against the High Table. But once that's over, Chapter 5 will bring acceptance. And this is where we see a John who's at peace with himself and his identity. He'll accept that his days with Helen were the only peace he'll ever know. They were a pocket of hope and happiness that he'll carry with him for the rest of his life, because he knows that his world will always drag him back into violence and bloodshed, because that's who he is, and who he'll always be. And that, my friends, is how I want to see the series end. There you have it, ladies and gents. Let me know in the comments if you think I missed something. Until then, see you next time.